Okay, so we've been talking about fractions and number line and counting fractions on the number line. So I thought this would be a good starting point if you wanted to talk about decimals with your learners, and so to begin with decimals, we probably would be a best idea to start with tenth as a fraction. So you can again use a bar of chocolate. And this bar of chocolate has got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 pieces. So each one of these, so if a whole bar of chocolate is a 1, then each one of these would be a tenth. So that's 1/10, that's another tenth, and so on. So we can use this, in fact, as part of our counting on a number line. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to this time actually use the picture down on the number line, because it sometimes helps my students understanding what I mean by partitioning a whole and then counting based on those parts. So if this is 0, so let's take a picture of, let's take a copy of this chocolate, copy it and put a copy here. So I'm going to squash it a bit so it's kind of more manageable in placing it on the number line. So so as you can see, this would be 1/10 there. That's 2/10, 3/10, 4/10, 5/10 here. I'll write the 5/10. And then it would be 6/10, 7/10, 8/10, 9/10, and this place would be a whole bar of chocolate. So that's 1. And then let's bring the next bar. Let's place it here, and so then here we will have 1 whole 1 and a tenth. So that's 1 and a tenth. So this is basically 11/10. So that's 10 and another 1 here makes 11. So that will be 12/10 or 1 and 2/10. And then so on. So 1 and 3/10, 1 and 4/10, 1 and 5/10, 1 and 5/10, 1 and 6/10, 1 and 7, 1 and 8/10, 1 and 9/10, and then this would be 2 whole 1. And it just carries on. So practice this, and then once you practice that, then you could maybe then you could, let me rub these off. So maybe you could then do some questioning on the basis of what we just done. So we could, for example, the very first thing we could ask them is, so what do you think 1 whole 1 take maybe 3/10 would be? So that's 1 whole 1 there. And then take away 3/10 would bring us here, which would remain, which will leave us 7/10. Or maybe we can go out of the scale where it's not in view and say, what do you think 5 minus 3/10 maybe? Well, 5 minus 3/10 will start from 5, but this time they have to visualize it because we don't actually have it on the screen. So from 5, and then I have to come back 3/10. So, and then hopefully they will see that would be 4 whole 1 and 7/10. Yeah, but if it need be, then you have to draw it. You have to actually draw it, or maybe start with a smaller number. Maybe start from, say, 3 here rather than 5, and then show them, and then move on to larger numbers. Of course, adding would also be a good way to implement these understandings. So, for example, maybe 1 and 2/10 plus maybe 2 and maybe 9/10. Yeah, so 1 and 2 makes 3. 2/10 and 9/10 makes 11/10. That's already a 1 and a tenth. So that makes a whole of 4 and 1/10. Yeah. So if this is difficult for them to see it, then of course on the number line and show them how positive hops means adding together. Negative hops is when you're subtracting and coming back. The reason that this was an introduction to decimal was because decimals, the tenth can actually be written as 0.1. So that's a point where they can then see that the fractions where they have 10, 100 or 1,000 in the decimal in the denominator, they actually relate directly to decimals. So that was the very first point of introduction to decimals. 0.2, and this would be 0.3. That would be 0.4, and that's 0.5. So 5/10 can actually be written as 0.5, and then here 1 and 10th, you have to show them that can in fact be written as 1.1. So 1 and 5/10, you can show them that can be written as 1.5, and get them to practice these, not just reading it, but also writing it, and counting in fractions, counting in decimals, back and forth on here, so they can see the relationship and the association that the two ideas, fractions and decimals, can have together.